Kia ora, tēnā koutou, no mai, haere mai. Hello everyone, welcome to the Walk in the Shadowlands podcast. Join me as we take a walk into the realms of the unexplained, of the paranormal, of things that go bump in the night and haunt your dreams.
Your hosts?
I'm Marianne. Thanks so much for joining me today, tonight, whatever time it is, wherever you live in this beautiful world of ours. Sit back and relax. Let me be your guide as we walk into the Shadowlands together and see what awaits us there. Kia ora, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Walk in the Shadowlands podcast. I'm your host, Marianne. Today, we're joined by a remarkable guest who'll take us on a journey deep into the Shadowlands, unraveling the threads that connect our reality to a realm that is unseen by most people. We welcome back Dr. Sydney Brewer, who was our guest on the very first episode of this season. Dr. Brewer is a true explorer of the ethereal realms and rejoins us this episode to share his profound insights and experiences that challenge the very fabric of our understanding. We most often perceive the world around us through the lens of what is visible, tangible, and scientifically explainable. But what if I told you that beyond our perceptions lays a tapestry woven by entities from higher dimensions of being? Dr. Brewer's journey takes us through the intricate dance between multidimensional beings and our own consciousness. Imagine, if you can, growing up with two diametrically contrasting belief systems in your family, Roman Catholicism from his father and Wiccan spirituality from his mother. Dr. Brewer did just that. But what actually happens when he discovers that the entities we often perceive as being gods and demons are in fact part of a higher dimensional chess game? What if our actions, our fears, and even our belief systems are pieces on that very board? Through his unique lens, Dr. Brewer reveals how our thoughts, beliefs, and emotions send out signals that these higher beings respond to, like a cosmic dance of cause and effect. And it doesn't stop there. From exorcisms to awakening, from indoctrinations to revelation, we explore the journey that led him to see through the veils of illusion. What role does fear play in our reality? How do our choices shape the grand narrative of existence itself? And as the tides of change bring in a new era, what does it mean for humanity's evolution? Dr. Brewer's revelations challenge our perceptions and offer a fresh perspective on the choices that define us. Be prepared to have your minds expanded and, at the very least, your paradigms shifted as we walk into the Shadowlands with Dr. Sydney Brewer. And during our walk, we'll traverse the landscapes of belief, the corridors of awakening, and the vast expanse of multidimensional realities. This episode is not for the faint of heart, but for those who seek to peer beyond the surface of the Shadowlands, to glimpse the hidden intricacies that shape our journey through the cosmos. This is Walk in the Shadowlands, where the boundaries of what is perceived as reality blur and the Shadowlands whisper their secrets. Without further ado, are you willing to walk with me into this part of the Shadowlands, into the realm of the Great Awakening, and see what awaits us there? Then let's begin. Dr. Sydney Michael Brewer was born in a small town on the eastern seaboard of the Crown Corp of Canada. He's currently 41 years old. Sydney's trained in many different theological philosophies. He obtained a PhD in demonology from 2018 to 2023 through the American Institute of Metaphysics under Dr. William Lester, ATL, Georgia. He also trained in the Hemisync Gateway Project, CIA training programs for operators in 2022 through to the present date. And he was recruited through levels of secret societies, the real Enlightenment Organization Illuminati, not what the public propaganda thinks is the case. Sydney also trained in financial worldwide systems via Sublette Corp to facilitate the financial handover and peaceful transition of power from the old elites to the new Earth 5D awakened via the CQV Trust. Executed for the protection and advancement of the human species plan via the White Hat program. He was selected to advance the Awakening program in 2019. He's also the founder of the Easton Institute, created in 2023, to provide real, unfiltered information to those seeking the exit, the old matrix systems, or currently the operating system you know today. I'd like to welcome back my guest, Dr. Sydney Brewer. In this episode, we're going to talk about some stuff that you may be hearing for the first time or has only ever been something that you may have heard and dismissed, but it's a very interesting and important topic. And so I'd like to welcome Dr. Sydney back to us today.
It's nice to be back. I appreciate the invite.
Thank you for coming back, Sydney. Now, in our last conversation, you mentioned that your work in the field of demonology led you into exploring other areas of spirituality as opposed to religion and religious teachings. Can you please talk us through how this happened for you and what made you specifically step off that path that you were on previously, or perhaps it's more of a deviation?
Okay. So when we go through this, there has to be something more. When you get to this level, you get exposed to more and more information. The algorithms decide at the top levels, etheric beings run everything. When you start putting out information and you're starting to connect dots in your consciousness, when you're having a thought that, wait a minute, this might be connected to that, might be connected to this, it sends out a signal. And when that signal goes out, they respond because they know now that you're catching on to how this program works.
Right.
So when you come from a religious background and you go through the exorcism side, because I did grow up Roman Catholic. My dad was Roman Catholic, my mom was Wiccan, that side of it. And I have both experience. So when I came up in the Roman Catholic side, I was that big, strong believer. We went to church all the time. We went through all of the actual sacraments and everything else. And you're trained into that indoctrination. Like, okay, so I'm going to go do the work of Jesus Christ and I'm going to get rid of all these negative entities and I'm going to be the savior and I'm going to help all these people. And you're all gung-ho to do this until you learn how it works. And when you see that the connections between multidimensional beings and the indoctrinations are simply put as what we view as gods are literally just other multidimensional beings causing influences in this reality. And we are just the pawns of those influences. So they're playing a game of chess at a higher level. And we are just a reaction of what happens at their game of chess. That's how this works. So when you make that connection, they take you and then expose you to the real truth and what is actually there. So then you have no choice but to walk away, because if you kept going with what you were doing, you're literally just creating a false practice. And they show us how it works. What trigger words to use to be able to cast out entities in all the exorcisms I did, knowing that the spirit, the entities we're talking about weren't actually there and how they actually operate. We were able to just be like, create suggestive thought in the client and then automatically all the sessions were finished. That's just how it works. So we, at the top level, you get that information and they allow it to happen because they know, so they're not going to screw with the process. When you come up through the program, you don't have that information. And when you start these investigations and start doing the paranormal investigations and your ghost hunts, they actually keep this going. And you're under the impression that this entity is there and I'm going to bring in this divine power and we're going to get rid of it because that was how you were trained coming in. But it's everything is left. You must accept information. And the more open you are to information, the more information will come because they're testing how much consciousness evaluation you have. Do you have 144,000 frequency? Can you do all of these things? Can you accept that up here, We have a decision to make for the greater good. It may cause a ripple effect, and in the reality you are in, it's going to cause all of these chaos problems. But a negative today will not be a negative tomorrow. It will turn out to be a positive. That's how they look at it.
Right.
So that's our two laws. Now, when people are having these influential factors in their life, they basically escalate it. A lot of the time they're buying into it. It's like the doctor saying, hey, you're depressed. You're going to go home and say to your friends, oh, I'm depressed. You just literally locked it in with an affirmation. So now your quantum field is going to project an image of depression into your field all the time. So that's the same actual concept with that reality. Those multidimensional beings, especially of the lower vibration, they're just waiting to feed on that energy. So as soon as you feed into the fear, oh my God, you might be possessed, or I've got these negative influences, it's all demonic. The moment you start buying into that principle, now you have all of those attachments coming at you. And that's where the cascading effect starts to happen.
Very interesting. There are many listeners who are tuning into the podcast with whom this information may be absolutely new, and it's the first time that they're hearing anything like this. Could you please explain from the beginning for those who have no current understanding of what's happening, so that they can gain understanding, or at the very least will cause them to question everything that they currently observe around them?
Okay, so my understanding of the question you're asking is basically based around the Great Awakening experience. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So it was created as a system. We needed to make that change. We knew that the actual old Draconian Empire was on the way out. Everything was scripted. So for anybody who doesn't know what that means, it means that every Earth realm existence will always have an existence in play, and there will always be main players guiding the system. So there's always etheric beings. You may call them gods or devils or demons or angels. You can call them whatever you want, but they are just literally a multidimensional Overwatch system that watches us the same way we watch reality television. That's just how it works. And they don't care that you do bad or good things. That's a big common misconception. The only question they have is, why did you do what you did? That's it. That's the only question. They don't care that you did something bad, because they know that the negative today will be a positive tomorrow. It's not that you did something bad. It's just it guided you into the next role or next position the next day, so you can have a chance to try to do better. The awakening experience was done, simply put, the old negative influences from the old 1%, the people that were already in place to keep humanity enslaved, that had to end. And then when we came into 2019, they had to introduce the actual pandemic system specifically for that actual asset. And it was all about a transition period. So people viewed it as they're trying to take over the world, they're trying to shut it down. And sure enough, that was a plot from one side, only one small group of one side of one organization that actually tried to put that forward. The other etheric teams see the work that these guys did, and they say, wait a minute, if they're going to do that, we can actually use what they're doing to induce this effect. So up the chain, they said, no, let them have their moment. Let them do what they want to do and see what humanity does. Because remember, everything's about free will. At the time, they threatened everybody under a fear-based matrix to get this done, or hence you won't be able to work, you'll lose every other. So that was the actual fear-based matrix. So that was their program. The fire levels up, and that again said, okay, so if they're going to do that, we're going to watch who's actually going to make a free will choice to do that. They're going to give up their morals in place of actual material possession. I'm going to keep my job. So basically, you said money's worth more to me than my health.
Right.
I'm going to go to work tomorrow, but people tried to actually justify it and say, you know what, I have kids to feed and I have this and that. We know that now everything would have been provided through this actual experiment. So there was never any actual real threat there, but it was viewed as a threat in the time because nobody knew the difference in this whole systems. But that's how this game was played. So when they did this, we started going through the actual selection process. Now, that's where this whole little pandemic thing comes into play. They know when the new age comes in, the golden age, the age of Aquarius, they knew at the entry point of this stage that we were taking over. They knew the old 1% was being eliminated, and everybody coming through the actual awakening, going from 3D into 5D, would replace the old 1%. So this is what the selection process from 2024 was all about. We're talking about white hat directives and everything coming down from the top. The white hat directives are basically the etheric beings responsible for each continental zone. That's how that works. And
Right.
in the United States, we have all of that happening. In Canada, same thing, but every little continental zone we have has a one white hat responsible for that territory. And then they decide through a selection process what actual processes are we going to put into place. And now the 1%, the old system, they'll want to do CBDC systems, the 15-minute cities. So that's just one version of the program. Then you have people like the creative societies and that's another version of a program. Then you have what we do at the Yesden Institute. That's another version. They came down with a directive and said this: you guys do this program, but you must have an option for all humanity to go to, depending on which choice they make. Over the last couple of years, everybody's been fed a bunch of propaganda on all of these social media profiles, and they just keep pumping it and pumping it. And every time you talk about these propagandas, your cameras, your screens, and everything else is gauging your retinas and checking your eyes and checking your actual emotional response to the information you were given.
Right.
That generates another code that says this person responded to this event in this way. Now, whether you want to admit it or not, that's the actual truth. So even though you won't go public and say, you know what, yeah, I stopped for a few extra seconds and I was watching a girl shaking her butt on a social media profile, that algorithm already knows that you paused for that extra second and watched it.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
Yeah.
So now you're put into another profile and they're going to decide then how this works. So now you're going to start getting more information, more propaganda, more information regarded around that. And then lo and behold, you have all of this extra information that subconsciously you want it, but not consciously. It's just going to keep feeding you. And now it's fear-based. So they're going to watch everybody. They're going to keep pumping this out. There is a script in place for all of this to happen over the next few years. There are major catalyst events coming in. The selection process is already finished. So people thinking that they're going to be left behind in this whole program, it's impossible. If you learn about the awakening, you're going through it. That's just how it is. You're actually making it to the next level. The only advice we have at this moment in time, and this is coming straight from the top, be a better human being today than you were yesterday, and you will make it through this program just fine. That's it. Make better choices and be better to humanity. And that was the directive we were given. And that's why we set up everything the way we did, because we had to close a gap. And they're forcing everybody to make those choices. They're threatening you with these 15-minute cities, the CBDCs and all that. Well, we already have the answer and we're doing it at the Institute. It's like we have this haven. We're actually transitioning the system back because the old maritime system says you're going to be here and be a slave, but we're going to show you that's not the actual truth. And we can prove it to all of humanity. We literally have the whole script laid out and we're going to show you how it works.
So fascinating. So can you explain what is meant by 3D reality and 5D reality?
So the biggest topic right now in the world is 3D to 5D. Most people don't know what that is. And another question they ask in there is, why is there no 4D? Why are we skipping 4D?
Good question.
This is the ultimate big question. So I'm going to answer all here in one shot. It's pretty simple to actually explain. Third dimensional space is your lowest vibrational space. It means you've fractured your energy down so much that you are in physical form. You are more matter than energy. So you're in the third dimensional space. You're more matter than energy. Now you have to learn to get out of here. You have to learn what you are in order to elevate your consciousness and level up. And that's where that comes from. So we're talking about people going through their life path numbers and their missions, their lessons, and their choices. As according you go through the tree of life, and no matter what background you come from, every indoctrination all throughout this actual reality has the exact same thing. The tree of life in the medical system is the actual medical symbol. The tree of life and the tree of knowledge and Christianity and everybody else, they actually split it. But when you put it back together, that was into your actual Wiccan and paganism, where they have as above, so below. They just did it a little bit differently. And then you get into the Kabbalistic plastics, where they actually have the symbols. They tell you how the life paths actually work and all the challenges you'll face through it in the esoteric practices. So in that system, we know that you have to make these choices to go through. Not everybody comes through, and the propaganda that was put out is you must awake as many people as possible right now. Everybody needs to wake up and we need to riot and we need to take back the system. But that is the actual wrong answer. It's brains over bullets. Use your head, people. It was never there. There's never actually a real threat. The script will play out. It means that the section of people that decided that energy is now a thing. It's more important than matter, meaning you're in 3D, you're going to have your egotistical mindset. You're going to be money hungry. You're going to be locked into your business. You just want to keep stacking chips up in your pocket. and you want the fanciest cars, the
Right.
nicest houses, the jets, the airplanes. And then you go to 5D, and how you get to that process is through this selection phase. They strip everything away. Through the process of elimination, they give you possible scenarios. Oh, invest over here. Oh, invest in this Bitcoin, or invest in this crypto, or do this, or get into the blockchains, or every part of these things are just a script to beta test you to see what you're going to do when the chips are down. Are you in such a bad situation that you are willing to give up your morals to save yourself in the physical space? That's how this whole selection process works. And as you start to actually go through the process, you realize, I'm creating this reality. I am an energetic being. I am an etheric being, an extension of God experiencing itself. Therefore, I don't need all these things in my life. And they strip it away just to show you, you actually just survived with nothing. So you can
Right.
survive with nothing. Now that you know that this is possible, let us show you how you should go forward in the realities as you go up to the 4D to 5D. 5D is you have a full comprehension now that this is an illusionary matrix, that the system you were in is actually false. It's a clinical prison planet is how they actually look at it.
Yeah.
You're kept in, and they keep that vibrational low, right? And they want to keep that happening. They want to keep you a slave. They want to keep you going. They feed off the energy, they feed off the vibration, and they make you think that money's an illusion, that you're just going to keep chasing until you're 65.
Yeah.
Nobody catches on to it because we're ingrained to think we have to get a job, we have to go to university, we have to do all these things. And now we all know that it's all bullshit. So
Right.
as you go through the awakening process, you'll realize, wait a minute, you guys pulled the wool over my eyes. I didn't have to do that. And now all the information is coming out and this whole pandemic stage. And this is why they use one global catastrophe, one incident from all different sides. Every player at the table is using the same traumatic event to induce the next event for humanity.
Right.
So even though you have a negative impulse and you want to actually induce this for depopulation of humanity, the higher up says, I'm going to use that because I'm going to wake a bunch of people and we are going to move them over into the 5D system. And now we have a higher vibrational group of people that were never awake before. So now we're creating this new Earth system. And that's what the 5D is. When you talk with the Jordan Guidestones, the 500 million depopulation that you want to get into, it wasn't actually depopulating to 500 million. It was actually 500 million awakened souls is what the actual transcript was supposed to be. 500 million people were going through the awakening between 2012 and 2024. And on January of 2025, the next cycle process starts for the next batch of people that are going to come from the now 3D back into the 5D. This cycle will continue as the rainbow children finally stack up in numbers. That's how that works.
Can
So
you?
we don't talk about the 4D because 4D is tied to your throat chakra, which has to do with the metaverse, a deeper level of the matrix. So we're talking about the Meta, the company Meta, and I will throw this out there because they know what they're doing and it is public information. They created a digital universe for everything to live in. You can come here, live here, work here, play here, earn real actual currency to use in the real world. So this was the bait that was put out there. Now we have Elon Musk versions of it where they're actually creating digital consciousness and putting the chips. So what the selling feature on that is going to be over the next 6 years is they're going to say, do you want to live forever? Do you actually want to be a god? Do you never want to die? And a lot of people are going to jump on that because nobody wants to die. That's the big fear part in the matrix.
Mm.
So he's going to have an instant sales boom. Let's say boom, because he's going to upload your digital consciousness to the internet. And Mark Zuckerberg and Mr. Meta over here has already created the digital world for all that to exist. So when we talk about shows like Upload and Altered Carbon, they literally gave you the footprint of what they're doing.
Right.
That's the poison apple principle. That's how that works. So we know if you're in 5D, that's all horseshit, you're an eternal being and that you can carry on this existence and you're actually going to go through the med process, fix your DNA, unlock all of your DNA strands and move forward. But the people in the 3D can get at the opportunity to go this way, or they can buy into the other version, the deeper level of the next matrix, where they actually get locked into another computer simulation program for eternity. That's what their sales pitch is going to be.
Right.
So that's coming up. This is not science fiction. This is science fact.
Yeah.
We have the actual documents. So they are actually beta testing these programs right now. This is actually happening in the world. So, it's a little bit hard to grasp when they talk about realities and everything else. And like you said, for a lot of people, they're hearing this for the first time. It can be very scary. And this isn't meant to give you an induction of fear. It's meant to show you how deep and evil they can actually get when you have the wrong etheric team running a program.
Yeah.
Because they are insidious. It's just that level. And that's your demonic entities that everybody keeps talking about, the lower vibrational beings. And they have a plan and they will get a certain number of the population to buy into it. That's just the way the script works.
Yeah.
And then they must try to find a way out again. But that's the actual difference between 3D, 4D, to 5D. 4D is the actual metaverse, the Tesseract.
Right. Which brings me to the subject of the Mandela effect, which is a sign for people who remember things like I do, of when the Monopoly guy wore a monocle and Nelson Mandela died in prison. And these events have changed, or at least that's a sign. If you remember a Mandela effect, that's pretty much a sign that you transitioned from one reality to the next reality.
That is literally the guiding principle that we use when we're doing investing. So when people talk about this, and through all of my clients, even all of the thousands of conversations I have, we use that as the starting point. Do you remember the Mandela effect? And when we explained it to them, there was a cornucopia on the Fruit of the Loom logo. There was a hyphen in Kit Kat. There was a T in Skechers. George had a tail. We know this. There was a black tip on Pikachu. We know this from our timeline. It worked like that. 2012, everything changed. The Mayans actually had it right. It was the end of the world, but only as you know it. It was the beginning of a new system.
Right.
2012 and 2019 are the exact same years due to the switching over from Gregorian and Julian calendar systems. That's how we actually made that transition, and that's how they hid it in plain sight.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? And that's what they do. Those that trying to control this reality, they hide things in plain sight.
Absolutely.
I guess an example of that are all the things that show up on the Simpsons show that later...
Not grown.
Yeah, very interesting. In a 5D reality, how would our perception of time and space differ from how we perceive it in 3D?
So it doesn't, actually. The common misconception between everybody thinks, one of the big propaganda things put out there, and I'm going to word this very carefully. One of the propaganda schemes that were put out was that you're going somewhere. You're actually going to be taken and you're going somewhere. You're going to be ejected from this planet into another planet. That was the actual 5D script. That was propaganda that was put out there. 5D consciousness just means you can now see everything for what it is, know you're making better choices, and go forward in the system knowing that the etheric fields and energy manipulation is the actual truths of how this works, and that you have to learn to level up. It's not until you actually start to progress to the 6th, 7th, and 8th dimensional space do you actually get ejected from this planetary system itself. That's when you're allowed to go past the 7 known continents. That's when you're allowed to go to the summer passage. That's when you'll get access to the lands outside. You actually must have that kind of vibrational space. And I mean, they did hide that in plain sight. If you look at the UN flag, they literally showed you the actual exit for the summer passage, because that's what that is. When they show you the map from a bird's eye view, and then they have the reefs going around it, well, there's an opening at the top. If you actually look at the land masses that are tied to that and follow that path straight out, you will find the summer passage.
Interesting. What is the summer passage? I've never heard of that term before.
So that's where the prison planet system comes in. The indoctrination that they give everybody is that the oceans are so vast. If you start to explore any more than what you are, you're never coming back. That was the actual guiding principle that they gave everybody. Right. We told them that if you head out on this ocean, you will never come back. You'll never be seen again. And everybody's afraid because they see these vast oceans. From like, how do I get there? How do I go all the way out to this area? Right. And that's how they managed to keep it. They're like, no, because people see everything as a globe system itself. But ironically, the whole globe principle wasn't even introduced until after Universal actually put it up on the TV for their movies for the very first time. And then they started spinning it. And then that's how everybody started to buy into the globe principle. That's actually what happened with actual modern society. So nobody was really given anything to it. Right. Because in Admiral Byrd's day, it was a lot different. So when Admiral Byrd did his 4th expedition to Antarctica and started that, and this was in like the Encyclopedia Britannica, what was it? I think it was 1954 or I'm not sure exactly which date, but he had 10 pages on Antarctica. So if you have a copy of that edition of that, it's actually proof in the pudding about what this actual plane of existence is. And then when he came back, he disclosed that information in his fourth expedition. And then that's when 1957, the Antarctic Treaty was signed. And then all these countries decided to show up there. Now, why did they all go after there when he got back? And he exposed everything for what it was. And we all know what happened afterward. So that's how that worked, right? So there's the poles existence, the polarity poles. They're talking about the North Pole, the South Pole. There's actually a lot more to it. There is a firmament. That is how everything works. That's what SpaceX was running into right now when they're shooting their missiles up. And that's why it looks like a blue hydrogen field following the actual missiles, because that's what the firmament is actually consistent of. It's actually a wall of actual hydrogen. That's how that works.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Very cool. Interesting. I do recall one time my star people took me way out and they showed me this universe and multi-universes as planes, flat planes. And they showed me they were stacked on each other like a pancake.
Correct. So it's done that way for a reason. And what they did for defeating that part of it was give you the shocker points. So all of your shocker points in your body are tied to a planetary body, but they just misnamed it. All they did was say, oh, your solar plexus, and plexus actually means system. So when you think about it, solar system, solar plexus, it's a solar system.
Right.
All you're doing is introducing planetary energies and learning to get past them. So your influences of Saturn, your Uranus, Venus, and all of these planetary systems, closer you get to the sun. That's how that works. So every religious indoctrination has one specific version of all of these multidimensional things, planetary systems and everything else. But in the 3D side of things, they're trained to look up and see an actual blue sky. And they're trained to see that the sun, they think the sun is 3 million miles away and we're ripping through space and we're all spinning around and around and around and around. But why does nothing ever change? And there's so many things you can get into here. Like you're going way down the rabbit hole. But long story short, end of the day, all you have to do is go through the awakening process. You will be given access to the information and we get you out of the actual maritime system. Because as long as you're tied into the maritime system, you're actually locked into the matrix. That's how it works. This is why the elites, when the elites are saying they take a trip to space or they're going to Mars, this is why they're all allowed to leave, because they're actually on the private side. They're allowed to leave the 7 known continents. That's how that works. They're under contract. There's nothing stopping them. They can actually go anywhere they want. They have the ways, the means, and the protection. That's how that works. But they're not going to somewhere out in space as such, as they're going horizontally 60,000 kilometers in one direction.
Right.
That's how that works.
Can you explain, and without going into too much detail, because it's a whole different subject, about the laws, the admiralty laws, is that what you said? Maritime?
Yes, yeah. Law of the sea, maritime admiralty law, and then the law of the land, the civil law. And that's what we're actually fighting right now. On a confidentiality level, I do have to say, like I will explain this to people, it was a system that was brought into place as a taxation systems, and that's how they decided to pay for things. So to break everybody's little hearts here about the conspiracy theories, it is just a banking system itself. The stocks and bonds are all traded in that aspect. That's what you are. The moment your mom signed a birth certificate, that was your bill of lading to the doctor, and that created a stock. And that stock, that bond is actually sitting there and it's traded. So here's how it works. When your mom signs that bond, it says she basically just signed over your labor for 65 years because you can't retire until you're 65 years old.
Right.
That's what that is. And so basically it's a war system. So they need the Crown Corporation of Canada will take that, for example, says, I have this person here going for 65 years. I want to borrow $22 billion from the World Bank based on the labor that this one individual is going to give me. The World Bank looks at it and says, yeah, this person will work till they're 65. They'll generate this much taxes. Yeah, okay, we'll give you the $22 billion. And then it gets into a whole other rabbit hole from there on how that's actually created. The key to actually escaping the matrix is actually escaping maritime admiralty law.
Right. And that is all the laws that currently are used by the court system.
Yes, that's right. And it ties in, that's why the judge wears the black robe, and that's why you have representation. They try to get you to use a lawyer to represent you because you're playing in a court, which is like a basketball court. It's just our tennis court. It goes back and forth. The ball just keeps going back and forth. And whoever has the best strike is going to win. That's just how it is. You know what I mean?
Right.
So whoever has the best shot, the best defense, the best everything, it's all based around everything. Like it's every conspiracy theory It's based in fact. It's irrefutable. There's nobody that can say anything. 15, 20 years ago, if you talked about aliens, you would have been a tinfoil hat wearing SOB.
Yeah.
But now you talk about aliens and it's second nature. Every second person is talking about what's about to happen with the aliens. Its system is itself. And I mean, that's even going down. We don't have enough time or enough hours in the day to even go down all of these different systems. But when we got introduced to this, and this goes back to the actual demonology, when you have a perspective and an actual instinct and you're connecting dots, that system comes looking for you because they know you made sense of it. Now you figured it out. So what do you want to do with that information? You can leave the system or you can stay in the system and try to help others out. And that's the whole guiding principle. It was never meant to be nefarious. And at the top levels, it's not. The decision they make up there might seem bad to the little man that's down here because they're the ones suffering for it, but they're not looking at how this plays out over the next 50, 100, 200 years. And that's where they come from. They're looking at the grand scheme. Okay, it's going to take 2 generations to change all of humanity for the better. Okay, so we're going to have to create a problem over here and make this happen. That's actually how they look at the program.
And I know that my star people said to me personally, they said, look, we had the choice of slowly waking you over several lifetimes. We had that choice of waking you suddenly in the one lifetime, and we decided to go with the suddenly in one lifetime. So they do plan ahead quite. Of course, there is no time as we perceive it.
That's right. Time doesn't exist. The linear time doesn't exist only here.
Yeah, only here. With this new area of spiritual awareness you explored have included other species of beings, some we would refer to as star people or extraterrestrial beings. Have you had interaction with these beings, and what is the major learning, if so, that you've gained from interaction with these beings?
That's a very good question. It goes this is the difference between a multidimensional being and multidimensional influence. So the characters that you're created through the indoctrination. So let's just take characters like Michael, for example, as being this star character, Michael the Archangel. We know this being actually exists, but people are under the misconception. They think because we are in physical form, we're only one, that we can only be here in one activity. This entity is all over, the same as everything else, and it has itself spread over multidimensional space. That's how that works.
Right.
So he's playing in every parallel universe all at the exact same time. And that's how they operate. So when they're playing, it's like a master chess player playing 20 different tables at the same time.
Right.
That's how they actually show you how it works. Because they're saying if a human can operate and play all of these different games at this level, what can a high vibrational being do with all parallel universes? They're showing you how it works. That's all it is, right? Mm-hmm. In the sense of what I've met, my life path number dictates the Arcturian Council, which are responsible for planning and execution of the Great Plan. And that's where Set comes back in again, God's executioner. So you see how they drip fed me out of the old indoctrination into what actually is. We went from Set, which we learned of God of Chaos, but God's executioner executing the plan, thinking that we're still worshiping a God. So you still go from that sense. And then you get to meet the beings responsible for it. And they say, how was that for you? Because this is what we actually are. We are the planners of this actual universal system. In order for humanity to work out, we need to make sure that A, B, C, D, and E are followed by this actual deadline on your timeline.
Right.
And that's how it works. And you're like, okay, so is this my lineage? Is this what I am? They're like, no, you're the character that we placed in the game that we're responsible for. Mm-hmm. That's how it works. Mm-hmm. So you get to have these conversations. This where people are talking about, I got my downloads, I got my information. So every time you have those downloads, we used to look at it coming through. Angels are talking to me, demons are talking to me. Then you go to 5D, I'm getting downloads and I'm getting information from source and consciousness. And then it goes from there to the next level where you're actually having an intimate conversation with a multidimensional being, and they're telling you the plan and they're showing it to you. And then they just snap you back to the moment that you were a second ago. That's how it happens.
Right. Yeah. It's quite strange when that happens, isn't it? I mean, I know I've experienced that with my star people, and it's really quite an interesting experience. And they can download so much in a fraction of a second.
Yeah, exactly. Think of The Matrix, the movie The Matrix with Keanu Reeves. when he's getting that information and he's learning how to do everything, like, oh, I know Kung Fu and now I know karate and I know he learned all of these things like instantaneously, all these downloads. That is the literal truth of how this works. They send you a brain signal with information and now you instantly know. So when you hear people in 5D say, I don't know how I know, I just know. That's what they're talking about. They have the information, but they have no idea how they got it.
Just that knowing. You don't know where you know, you just know that it's true. So this is really very interesting. And I guess that's part of the reason why I started this podcast was to, at the very least, plant seeds in people's minds. Because if you get people questioning, then it leads to other questions. And it leads to them questioning. Yeah, which is a good thing. It's always good to question. What's the major learning that you've gained from your interaction with these beings to you personally?
Heart and love. That is the number one thing I learned coming from that background that came out of the torture and the trauma. I can honestly say when people say that love wins out over all, that is the ultimate play. So at the highest levels, they're loving beings that actually just want to see the best, but they know that they have to induce trauma for you to learn from it. That's how the game is played.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest thing I learned. I was not a very nice person in my youth. I was not a pretty nice person. I was very 3D. I was money hungry, business hungry. I wanted the best of everything. I excelled at every job I went into, made it to all the top ladders, but you don't get satisfied until you go through the hardships and you learn how to get yourself out of it. And when you get to the top levels, they show you, they're like, now, do you understand and respect the program that you just went through? And you literally have to sit back and just give them a clap because you're like, well done. I don't know how you put this together on such an actual scale.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you think about it. I know one of the things my star people said to me when I was having a face-to-face conversation with them, and it's something that's always stayed with me and it really hit me on a soul level. And he said, Marianne, when you do anything, you must do it from your heart. When you think from your heart, when you speak from your heart, when you act from your heart. And it's all about coming from that love space.
That's right.
Yeah.
Everything's intention based. And that's what I was trying to tell you. So they don't care that you made a choice to do something wrong because that's a personal choice.
Yeah.
They just want to know why you did it.
Yeah.
So if your intentions are pure, meaning that you are operating from the best possible heart space with the information that you have at hand at the moment, bro, you can only go forward with what you know, and you're basing your decisions on that, and you're going forward with the betterment of humanity or any decision that benefits everything. So you're taking everyone's feelings, your empathetic abilities and everything into play. If you can operate from that headspace, you will make it through this program without a doubt, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for you to, they're wondering why. Why did you make the decision? They're just curious. They want to know.
Yeah, very true. And one thing I can say, like personally, I have never felt such unconditional love that permeates your whole being as I have felt from my star people. You don't get that feeling of love here in this consciousness.
You can't get it anywhere else. I can speak to this wholeheartedly. I do have another story for you for another time and we can talk about it. But in the unconditional love sense, everyone that knows me now, I left my local area about 7-8 years ago, and they knew that character from then. They knew how 3D I was and everything else. The terms now 3D, right? So I left. I did all of this in the 7 to 8 years, and now I got back to my local hometown, and every person I meet now says that's not the same person. There's no way that individual was the person that left here. And I get this over and over. And they're like, there's something different. There's something wrong. He should never be this calm, this cool, this collective with this amount of information. It doesn't make sense to anybody here because they just have no comprehension of what we went through with the training and everything else and getting to meet all these things for the first time. Because when you get to see it for yourself, you realize you can put all of the other garbage away because now you know what exists because you've just seen it and witnessed it for yourself. So now you have that feeling and they're like, just here you go. Operate from a great, like you said, unconditional of heart space. And when those higher vibrational beings come around you, you will know they are around you because you will get this warm happiness, calming feeling like the ultimate DMT release in the brain or dopamine or anything else. You feel this wave of just happiness coming over you and calmness that just cannot be filter for the like
Yeah.
there. It's a shield, a light of shield, right? Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Fabulous feeling. How can people begin to raise their own awareness and level of understanding?
Stay off television. That's the big lie. The signals and everything else that are coming out. Stop buying into the propaganda. That's the big one. Raising your vibration is simple. It is done. You must go through the trauma. So this is a big misconception. Everyone thinks that they're just going to wake up and they're just going to make that life moment change. I'm just going to be a better human being today and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to change. And they think they can make such a drastic change so fast that are going to make up certain progress. So what happens is most people we found coming through the awakening, they start the whole thing. They think they can go from 3D to 5D, like on a rapid scale. They cut everything away. They get rid of meats. They move into a vegetarian diet. They get rid of dairy. They start talking into the gurus and start doing the chakra activations.
Right.
They start doing the meditations and they start going through all these processes. Problem is you just triggered your mind for a breakdown because you just break everything out of your system at one time that your body was used to. So now the parasites in your body actually start to fight back. Now they're going to start to break you down because now you're not going to feel good. You're not going to feel healthy. And you know what? I got to go back to this whole set and it keeps pulling you back in there. And that's what people get because you actually need to do the process they showed you to do and how they, ethereal beings work this. They drip feed you little bits of information until you're ready. That's how it works. So that you can build it up. You have to take the awakening the same way. You will go through it when the time is ready. Take very small steps. This week, cut something away. Maybe next week, cut something away and take it very slow and very actually calculated. Start making very calculated decisions on what you actually want to start moving away to. Eventually, everybody makes it through the program. We are in the new age, the golden age, the age of Aquarius. Everyone is going through this process. It is a selection stage. You are going through there. You don't have to actually go to gurus and meditators and spend thousands of dollars on the program. You know that's a big misconception. The only ground rule they have is be a decent human being and you'll be granted access into the program. That's how it works.
Yep.
That's it. That's the only rule.
It's as basic as it is. I guess a follow-up question is, what do you feel that we as a species or personally need to do or can do to help humanity rise to the newer vibrational state of being?
So what needs to happen is simple. There needs to be the release of actual information on actual strategic play to the right people. We are working on that right now. We know that there's a very specific date that information will be released. And the reason is information and knowledge are power. And once you empower the people with the right information, so people are still buying into the presidencies and all of this until that order comes from that office saying, this is what's happening in the world. Nobody's going to listen because until then, it's still considered a conspiracy theory. So they're only going to buy into it until they see it for themselves. Now, gradually, the influential factors in people's lives, like we were talking about with the negative and positive entries, the angels and demons, they create the influences to wake up very specific individuals very fast because that individual has a very specific role to play in the next actual system. So there was a bunch of us awakened early. There was a bunch of us just starting to come through. And lo and behold, we know the script says they need 500 million before the 2024 deadline. That's actually what happens. And ironically, we're only sitting at about 11 to 12 million right now. So when you're saying like at the last second, there's going to be this mass awakening at the very last second, this is what they're talking about. We're only made it from 2019 till now, we've only hit 11 million people because there was only 10 million that came through on the actual CERN system when we did that portal crossing. So that's what that goes into.
Can you explain a bit about the CERN system for those who may not understand or know?
Okay, so the propaganda is simple. They were doing it as the Hadron Collider, that whole program, the physicists, everybody in the 3D system is going to tell you one thing. At the highest levels, it's a way to induce a new reality. So every 12 years, they do particle firings all the time, and then they'll put it on the news and they'll say the one they show you actually on the news at every given time was a project that was conducted most of the time about 3 months previous. So they do it and then they're not going to tell you they're doing it. And then they do it and then they tell it, oh, it worked. It's successful. No, we're still here. Okay. Yeah. All good. All right. Now tell the public we did it. That's just how it works.
Right.
Because they're not going to tell you they're going to do something because if the public found out what level this is at, there would be a rebellion because they don't have all the actual information. Now, here's the other side of that. They're actually not doing the wrong thing. What they're doing with the actual system is they're following the script. So every time they need to change a timeline, they activate this system. And that's what actually creates the quantum timelines that we keep shifting to over and over. At the highest level, you are in an experiment and they keep playing it. And until you're on the other side, you're just not going to understand that. And people think that they want to rise up and they want to shut all these things down and we have a right to do this and everything else. But it's when you go through the 5D side, you need to be up there. You need to have that comprehension and the understanding that this is coming out. And I will tell you, by 2024, the actual information on all of these systems will be released to the public because 2025 starts the new cycle of people coming out of the program. So they want to have it done, let you make a choice, and then you decide, do you want to go through this? And then you start the selection phase for the next 12 years. That's how that's actually going to work. So they keep firing this. Every time they fire it up, they create a new actual system and we keep going through it all the time, over and over and over and over. That's how we ended up here.
Bit like Groundhog Day, really.
It is. And that's what they did. This is what I'm saying with everybody thinking they're going through it. Every day is just another chance to try again. So there's entities in place responsible for maintaining the actual holographic matrix, which is what you were in.
Yes.
This system has to be maintained. And how do you maintain it? Unless you're firing off mass amounts of energy all the time to keep the illusion going. It's just a simulation. That's just how it works.
And that's actually one of my most listened to episodes, and one that was my favorite to produce. I did 30 hours research on it. It was about Matrix and the holographic reality. Do we live in a holographic reality?
Is the Gateway Project? Are we talking about?
No, it's just the Matrix. Like it went into physical theorists and quantum theorists and all that sort of thing. So it very much ties in with what you're saying. And that's something I've always said to people. This is a prison planet. People that are here are not here through their choice for the most part, except for Starseed, who volunteered to come in and help awaken people. Most people are not here through choice. And it's really important for humanity to be aware, be able to make decisions for themselves and not have their thoughts controlled all the time.
Absolutely. So that's where they're coming in with their separation with the 3D to 5D systems. And this is what they're talking about. So this is the introduction of the rainbow children coming through this, the no karmatic debt children in that whole cycle. When those rainbow children were introduced, this is the end of it. So whoever's going through the awakening right now, as the last remains of humanity starts to wake up, this will be the separation as we talk with the 3D to 5D. Those 5Ders, the people in the 4D will be locked in the deeper level of the matrix. So if they don't wake up, they go over here and they get locked in this simulation.
Right.
And if they do wake up, they go over here and they actually create the new earth that everybody's talking about. That's actually the actual play and the choices you will have down the road within the next decade is basically what they're talking about right now. That's the actual play. A lot happens. I mean, look where we were 100 years ago versus where we are now. And you put that into perspective of the quantum leaps we made just in the last 5 years. So now in 5 years' time, what are they going to release?
And in fact, what in the next couple of years' time are they going to release? Especially with the scrambling that the current world governments are doing at the moment. It's very interesting times we live in. Sydney, this has been an absolutely fascinating conversation. And I know for my listeners who are hearing this information for the first time, they're going to either go, that resonates, or what a pile of crap. Either way, it's going to make people think. And
that's right.
That's the point of this all. I realize this is the second time we've tried to do this interview. The first time we had so many issues, and this time it's great. So recorded well. Is there anything before we close this conversation? Is there anything else that you might like to add that we haven't covered?
Yeah, the only thing I would like to add from a personal perspective is this. Don't buy into the propagandas. Let the system play out. Let it do what it's going to do. And please do not push your beliefs on other people. If we keep doing this, we're no better than the system we just came out of. We are not here to wake people up. They're here to make a conscious choice to come to you and you be a safe landing harbor for them when they actually wake up. It's the
Absolutely.
only actual choice that we have. Please don't go around beating people over the head with this awakening in consciousness. It's not supposed to be like that. They will come to you and they will go through their own process and phases. So just don't beat people over the head with it because that makes us no better than it.
Perfect. I absolutely agree with that. Thank you so much, Sydney, again for coming on and sharing your knowing with us all. I really appreciate your time. And I realize that you're an extremely busy man. So having you come back again to fix what didn't work the first time, I actually feel that this is how it was meant to be, because
Absolutely.
so much more has come out than did in the first interview, even though we had all those hiccups. Yeah, thank you, Sydney. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I definitely appreciate the invite. Thank you for having me. Anytime you want to have a conversation, I'm available all the time. I'll always be available to everybody that needs the actual information. If you want the truth about what's actually coming out, it is coming out, guys. You just have to give us some patience. That's all. I appreciate you guys' time and thanks for listening.
Awesome. And Sydney, once again, where can people contact you if they want to reach you?
Yeah, just if you're looking for any information on this and if you're looking for our services itself, you just head over to yesdeninstitute.com. That's our website and where we talk about everything with our membership. We protect our people. You can go over there, get a membership with us or book a free consultation. If you just want to have a conversation and try to learn more, we are open to that as well. You can go to yesdeninstitute.com, the website, or you can dial 236-900-5DYI.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Sydney, once again for being a guest on my show. I really appreciate it. It's been a very interesting, enlightening conversation. Thank you.
Absolutely appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And there you have it. Our journey through the Shadowlands, hidden realities and profound awakenings with Dr. Sydney Brewer comes to an end. From the depths of religious indoctrination to the heights of unveiling cosmic truths, we've walked through the realms often unseen and questioned deeply ingrained belief systems. I hope, at the very least, that this conversation has stirred the flames of curiosity for you, as it has in me, awakening the desire to question more of what we perceive to be our shared reality. But as we contemplate the role of these multidimensional beings of this fear-based matrix, and indeed of the very choices that steer our course, may we remember that the path to understanding is a journey, not a destination. Dr. Brewer's insights remind us that our thoughts, actions, and our intentions send ripples through the fabric of existence and intertwine with forces beyond our sight, hidden within the Shadowlands. But yet, as we, humanity as a whole, and each of us as individuals, stand on the precipice of a massive transformation, let's take his advice to heart, the advice that he himself was given, and the advice that actually my star people also gave to me, but in different words. Let's be better human beings today than we were yesterday, and let's make choices that resonate with the greater good. Our tapestry of this reality is both complex, very intricate, and woven with threads of mystery and wonder. It's up to us to unravel its secrets, to walk in its shadowlands. It's up to us to challenge our own personal assumptions and to embrace the evolution of consciousness that lays before us. As we continue to walk our individual paths, let's remember that we also are part of a grander narrative that is connected to the cosmos itself. I'd like to thank Dr. Brewer and also you for joining Dr. Brewer and I on this thought-provoking journey. Remember that the Shadowlands hold both darkness and illumination, and it's up to us to explore their depths with open minds and courageous hearts. Until next time, I'm your host, Marianne, bidding you farewell from the Shadowlands. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and share it with friends so you don't miss out on any episode. Like and follow for teasers of our upcoming shows. Also follow us on all social media platforms. Check out our Facebook page, WT Shadowlands, our Instagram feed, Walking the Shadowlands, TikTok, under walking_the_Shadowlands. Also, we have a YouTube channel under Walking the Shadowlands as well. This podcast is available on all free podcasting platforms. Just look for Walking the Shadowlands. Also, if you have Alexa, simply say these 4 words. Open Walking the Shadowlands and Alexa will play our latest episode for you. If you don't have a smartphone, don't worry. You can listen to the episodes from the podcast website, www.walkingtheshadowlands.com. For those who are impaired, there's a full written transcript of each episode on the website, so you don't miss out at all. Thanks for listening to this episode. Ka kite.